morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we got a new champion in the house. His name is Strategos Islin. I heard about this coming up, and I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've been so preoccupied with like the UDK B-Day event and getting my points wherever I can, so I can get the extra split souls as well as that juicy Lego book towards the end of the event. And it slipped past me up until this point where I was like, I didn't think about this, but like, you know, we were due for another update on maybe a potential fragment or fusion based type champion. So to my knowledge, what's going on right now is that I believe there's going to be a fragment event. So that's the way that I was notified about this particular champion and what it's going to bring to the table. We're going to break down his skills, his kit, as well as talk about maybe some areas where he's going to be useful at. And, you know, from there, maybe you guys can base your decisions on whether or not you're going to go for this champion on your needs on your account. You know what I mean? That's going to be based on what you need, right? So anyways, with that being said, we have a legendary defensive champion that's a part of the High Elves tribe, it looks like. Strategos, I'm going to say Strategos, so maybe it's Strategos. I'm not sure if maybe I'm saying the name right. Strategos Islin, or Strategos. I think Strategos sounds better. I don't know. His A1 is a double slash. It attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 35% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. That's nice. When counterattacking, the chance increases to 50%. So when fully booked, it's 3 books to get that A1 finished. It's going to be a 15% chance on top of that, which means at base value, it's 50. When counterattacking, it's 65%. I'm not going to lie. That's a little low comparatively to like other champions. And I'll give you some examples of some other champions that may be in the wheelhouse of having a provoke on their A1 at a 75% chance. The first one I think of is Black Knight, for example. So like the chance to land is kind of low. But, you know, there could be some uses for it. I don't know what to see. Hindrance, which is a 4-turn cooldown at base value, attacks all enemies. Before attacking, has a 75% chance of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. That's nice. Has a 75% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. On an AoE, that's good. When fully booked, you get another 25% chance, which means that this is all 100% chance. That's actually pretty significant because, like, there's some areas where decreased speed will be very, very prominent or very, very useful, and I think that right there alone speaks to how valuable that could be. On a 3-turn cooldown on top of that too, which is not too bad. All right, Flawless Stratagem. On a 6-turn cooldown at base value, so that's kind of high, places a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns, and then places an increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. Interesting. Also places a counterattack buff. Okay, so now I see where the A1 kind of comes into play with the whole counterattack aspect. So he puts it on himself on his A3. That's on him for 2 turns, and then he places a shield buff on himself as well for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's defense. That's huge, especially since he's a defensive champion. So it looks like he's going to be kind of like a provoker, control, protecting type of champion, and that seems interesting. When it's fully booked, it's down to a 4-turn cooldown, so that's pretty hefty. Protect the troops is his passive. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals themselves by 1% for each 500 defense this champion has. That's pretty big. I mean, if you're looking at it, when I was progressing through like early to mid game, around the best or like what I was considering like pretty significant defense at the time was around like 4K, 4.5K, and then as you get higher, you can start seeing yourselves like, you know, grasp up to the 6K, maybe even 7K down the road. That's actually pretty substantial for the amount of, you know, for every 1,000 you're getting 2% back. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. That actually will contribute a lot to his own like self-sustain, which is ideal because he's provoking and he's taking ally protection. So that's actually kind of a big deal for him to be like an all-encompassing kind of tank. They really kind of gave me like this whole, you know, traditional tank guardian style approach with this champion, which is interesting. Well, but that's not all. He also has a heal for all allies under ally protection buffs by 30% of this skill's initial heal. So it scales off of his initial heal, and 30% of that is what's going to go to any ally that's under ally protections from him specifically. Now, before I go into like comparisons and what I was thinking when I first read this guy's kit, he does have an aura that is an accuracy increase by 60 in all battles. So that's kind of nice across the board for any area that you want to use it in. But to kind of get into context of where I started thinking about like what is he compared to, when I thought about provokes and decreased speed, my first 2 thoughts were like those of like Krisk or Vizix, and I was like, does this guy kind of stack up to that? And to some degree, I want to say yes, and to some degree, I want to say no. And the reason why is this is like it's kind of like both of those two kits from Vizix and Chris were kind of slammed together with a counterattack and a shield placed on top of that to kind of give players a little bit of like an idea of where I think they were going at with this kit. It's interesting, and in particular, where is Provoke and Decreased Speed good at? Decreased Speed's good in Hydra, almost everywhere, but like more importantly, some specific key areas that it's like really, really good in, like Hydra, Iron Twins, for example. There's some play around that. And then, of course, Provoking, which is also good for Head of Decay. We talked about that not too long ago in our Hydra series. Those are very, very valuable, debuffs to be able to control the weather of that fight, the terrain of that fight. So that's interesting. Ally Protection, giving your team survivability, screams Hydra to me, as well as other areas. I'm not gonna lie. When I first looked at this guy's this champion's kit, I was kind of like, in the back of my head, the first thing I thought about was Necrit, and I was like, well, does this guy provide the same level of protection and the same level of enabling or disabling that someone like Necrit does? And to a certain degree, I would say no, because he doesn't provide the shields on the people that are ally protect, but he does ally protect everybody, which is kind of an interesting aspect behind it. So maybe not a direct translation there. And I was thinking about it myself. It's like, is there any viability in like maybe a Ghost Second style option for him to be able to, provide some kind of strategy in arena, maybe even tag team arena? And I think the answer is no and yes at the same time. Yes, you could do that for like like with a bolster set or maybe some kind of like basically shell comp where you kind of enable your team to be able to protect themselves, and he could do that. But I don't think that's idealistically like the best option. There's probably better options out there. I feel a little torn about this champion's kit because like he's a Magic legendary. And I feel like when you compare him to other champions in specific key areas, I feel like they just do more than he does. And I feel like that's kind of like the problem that I face with this champion, is that like on premise, it's not a bad kit, but there are others that do it better, so he doesn't seem like he's going to be top of the line. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, though. Do you guys feel like this champion is going to be a big deal? I will say that if we're looking at it from like alternative aspects, like Faction Wars, which is another area you will see like a lot of focus on particular champions, maybe this guy does provide you enough sustain to get you through those waves and to get you through the boss fight so that you can get that, those stars that'll allow you to get closer towards Lydia, for example. So I could see that being very valuable. And then on the same note, too, maybe some other areas. I mean, I don't know if there's any other champions or any other areas where Provoke is that prominent, but I will say that like the shielding and the protection seems to be pretty nice. Maybe as a pseudo healer in the sense of your team, if you're lacking in that regard, he actually could provide some sustain that way. That's all I can really think of at this point in time. But I'll be honest with you, it seems a little lackluster in my opinion compared to what we could have, and I think that I'm not entirely sure if maybe it's because of the low chance to provoke or the fact that like a lot of his stuff seems to be kind of conditional upon itself. So like, you have to have counterattack on the champion in order for him to benefit from, having an increased chance of provoking, and that chance is not even 100%, right? Now, mind you, I understand it's on an A1, but it seems a little, less enticing as I would like it for it to be if this is going to be like a Fragment or Fusion type event. So I won't deny, though, the decreased speed is a big one for me. I like that one, especially on it being an AoE. That could be a very big problem in the right scenario. So I'm not entirely sure. I do think his passive is something interesting, but I don't know if that amount of healing that we will get is substantial enough to justify him in action. We'd have to get some playtesting, and that's the one thing I want to caution everybody. We're looking at his kit from a glance, and it does make sense to be optimistic or pessimistic in some capacity, but I think until you get a chance to play test him and to get a feel for how this champion really is engaging or see how he's engaging content, I think it's very important for us to go with an open mind. And I think that, like, to be real with you guys, I don't want to go too hard on this champion when we haven't had a chance to play test it ourselves. So with that being said, maybe if some of these key parts of his kits are substantial enough to a point where we feel really, really good about the champion, then we would definitely want to take a look into it and observe it a little bit more. But at a glance, it doesn't seem like it's all too crazy. I think he's a nice contribution as a support champion or a bolstering champion, someone that can provide a little bit of extra control as well as sustain. You do want champions that can do multiple things, right? But you want them to do it well, and that's going to be the thing that's going to define whether or not this guy has it or not. So with that being said, let us know. Are you excited for this? How do you guys feel? I will say that because of all the events we've been having lately, it kind of seems like we haven't had a chance to rest. We just had like a triple 2x event for all shards this weekend, and I hope you guys got pulled something well. I'll give you a little heads up that during the Terrace 10x, I pulled a Krisk and a little Miss Annie. And then during the 2x for, I believe it was Ancients, I pulled a Mountain King. So we got a lot of Legos. Maybe not the ones I was looking for particularly, but we got something, so which is kind of nice. And I hope you guys also got some good pulls as well. If you got a Terrace, darn it, I want one too. But you know, we end up getting, you know, Turtle Boy as a constellation. But with that being said, let us know what you think about this. I hope you guys all enjoy your weekend, and you're looking forward to a very active week within Raid. And with that being said, always remember, stay ascended.